In a modest home tucked away in Minas Gerais, Brazil, a teenage girl sat quietly, her fingers dancing across the strings of an old acoustic guitar. That girl was Lissa Lever, born Lissa Lever, and without realizing it, she was about to spark a digital revolution. There were no flashy lights, no professional microphones, and no trained producers guiding her. Just her instrument, and a camera pointed at her soul. What started as a personal expression during the stillness of the 2020 lockdown quickly spiraled into something much bigger. Her earliest uploads to YouTube were short and raw, bare-bones clips that gave the internet a glimpse of something it didn't know it was missing. She didn't speak much, didn't try to be viral, and didn't chase what was trending. Instead, she simply played riffs from classics like The Police, The Offspring, and George Michael, breathing new life into songs that generations had grown up with. Her phrasing was delicate, her control remarkable, and her ability to translate emotion through melody was beyond her years. Audiences didn't just notice, they shared, commented, subscribed. Within a matter of months, her subscriber count skyrocketed into the millions. Her covers of Careless Whisper, The Kids Aren't Alright, and Every Breath You Take quickly racked up millions of views, not through shock value or theatrics, but through quiet mastery. She was proving something rare, that in an era dominated by spectacle, authenticity could still win. And yet, this was only the beginning. Because while millions were discovering her for the first time, Lissa was quietly preparing to make her next move, one that would challenge not just musical expectations, but the industry itself. It's a story that sounds almost too poetic to be true. The foundation of a future rock guitarist laid not in a music school, but in a video game. At just 7 years old, Lissa Lever's first exposure to guitar music wasn't through vinyl records or a family jam session. It was through the brightly colored plastic buttons of a Guitar Hero controller. While most children treated the game as a fun distraction, something to pass the time with friends, Lissa felt something different. The music spoke to her. The feeling of hitting notes in rhythm, the rush of finishing a song, and the joy of mimicking guitar solos planted a seed. That seemingly silly game wasn't just a toy, it was a spark. And that spark wouldn't fade. By the following Christmas, a real acoustic guitar replaced the plastic one. Her parents, unaware they had just handed their daughter the key to her future, thought it was a simple gift. But to Lissa, it became her lifeline. Without access to lessons or formal instruction, she turned to YouTube, soaking in every tutorial she could find. For hours, she would watch, rewind, and mimic, slowly teaching herself the language of music. Each mistake, each success built something stronger inside her: patience, discipline, and the silent belief that she could do this her own way. And perhaps that's what made her style so captivating. It wasn't just learned, it was lived. Her technique wasn't confined by tradition. It evolved naturally, sculpted by obsession and refined through constant practice. By the time she reached her teenage years, Lissa's guitar wasn't a hobby, it was her second voice. And while others in her age group were navigating school dances and part-time jobs, Lissa was shaping an identity she didn't even know would someday captivate the world. But even with that deep connection to music, her path wasn't set in stone yet. Because while her passion for guitar burned quietly in the background, her eyes were still fixed on a more practical future. Or so she thought. For most of her teenage years, Lissa Lever lived a double life. By day, she was a model student, focused, disciplined, and quietly aiming for a stable future. She poured herself into engineering and architecture, fields that promised security and respect. It was the path her family understood, the one society praised. A career built on blueprints and problem solving. To anyone looking in from the outside, she was doing everything right. But there was one constant her classmates didn't see: her guitar, always within arm's reach. In stolen moments between exams and assignments, she'd return to it like a trusted friend, strumming out stress and rediscovering herself. Music was never fully gone, it was simply waiting. Then, in 2020, the world changed. The COVID-19 pandemic swept across continents, shuttering cities, silencing routines, and forcing everyone indoors. What was once a predictable life became uncertain overnight. And for Lissa, that sudden pause did something unexpected. It gave her time to reflect. Is this really the life I want? The question lingered longer with each passing day. She since admitted that without the pandemic, she might have never taken the risk. But in that quiet, anxious stillness, she made a decision that would redirect her entire future. She would stop hiding behind the idea of a safe life. She would share her music. In October 2020, she uploaded her first public guitar video to YouTube. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't long, but it was honest. And in that honesty, people found something rare: authenticity. The floodgates opened. One video led to another, then another. The views came slowly at first, then surged. Her channel exploded and her life would never return to normal. The architect's desk would soon be replaced by guitar stands. The girl with a practical plan had just stepped onto an unpredictable, exhilarating path. And what happened next would shock even her biggest supporters. It started with a few seconds. No introduction, no flashy edits, just Lissa Lever and her guitar playing with the kind of emotional control that made people stop scrolling. What she didn't realize at the time was that those brief clips would become the blueprint for a viral empire. While other content creators chased choreography trends or loud reaction bait, Lissa did the opposite. She kept her videos quiet, deliberate, and intimate. The frame was often tight, focusing on her fingers and the instrument. Sometimes it was just the melody, no words, no backstory. But that simplicity was exactly what made it stand out. She was giving viewers what they didn't even know they were craving, pure talent, undiluted by noise. In an era where attention spans are measured in swipes, Lissa struck gold by knowing when to hold back. Her blend of short, snackable videos for TikTok and deeper performances for YouTube gave her reach on both fronts. She wasn't just trending, she was building a brand, one that fused algorithmic precision with artistic integrity. Her guitar covers weren't just replays of well-known hits, they were reinterpretations filled with tension, emotion, and a subtle kind of defiance. Taylor's Whisper wasn't just a soft rock classic anymore, they became a moody, haunting guitar piece under her touch. The Kids Aren't Alright took on new life with their heavy, melancholic riffs. Every breath you take became less about obsession and more about introspection. Audiences didn't just watch, many returned again and again, replaying these familiar songs reborn through her hands. Her channel, once just a digital notebook of guitar sketches, soon passed 3 million subscribers. Comments poured in from every corner of the globe. Brazil, the US, Japan, Germany, people connected across language barriers through music alone. And behind every upload was the same quiet promise, no gimmicks, no shortcut. Just Lissa, a guitar, and growing belief that maybe this wasn't just a phase. Maybe this was what she was meant to do. But the internet, as always, doesn't hand out success without a price. And soon, not everyone watching her rise was there to celebrate. As her channel continued to grow, something else began to emerge, something less celebratory, but all too familiar to women in music. Despite her undeniable skill, despite the hours of practice and the complexity of her arrangements, a wave of criticism surfaced in her comments and forums. Not about her playing, not about her music, but about her appearance. Detractors claimed she only went viral because she was pretty, reducing her talent to little more than a marketing tool. It's a narrative that has haunted countless female artists, especially in male-dominated genres like rock and metal. And for Lissa Lever, it was a bitter reminder that breaking the mold came with a target on your back. She could have fired back. She could have released a video rant, called out the hate, or leaned into the controversy for clicks. But she didn't. Instead, she did the one thing critics weren't prepared for: she kept uploading. Week after week, performance after performance, Lissa continued to let her guitar speak. She tackled more complex solos. She refined her style. She poured the emotion into every string, every bend, every vibrato. Then quietly, without drama, she forced the conversation to shift. Her consistency became her resistance. Her tone, her phrasing, her precision, it all shouted what she refused to say publicly. I'm here because I earned it. And that all silent defiance hit harder than any online clapback ever could. It wasn't long before musicians, real musicians, started taking notice. Guitarists, producers, and fellow content creators began sharing her work not because of how she looked, but because of what she played. She was building something that transcended algorithms and silenced bias, credibility. Yet her boldest statement was still to come. A performance so powerful, so undeniable, that even her harshest critics had no choice but to pay attention. And it came in the form of a legendary collaboration, one that would cement her status as a serious artist on the world stage. Every artist faces a moment of reckoning, an opportunity to either prove they belong or fall back into the crowd. For Lissa Lever, that moment came with 6 strings and a stage. When she was invited to perform alongside Mita Strauss, the trailblazing guitarist best known for soaring with Alice Cooper and Demi Lovato, it wasn't just a performance, it was a validation. They chose to tackle The Trooper by Iron Maiden, a song notorious for its blistering tempo and technical demands. It wasn't a casual jam, it was a gauntlet. And Lissa rose to the challenge with the precision of a veteran and the fire of someone who had everything to prove. The footage captured something no comment section ever could. 2 women dominating a genre often reserved for men, trading licks with power, grace, and mutual respect. No autotune. No edits. Just raw musicianship. For fans of metal, it was a powerful moment of inclusion. For Lissa, it was a public shutdown of the narrative that she didn't belong. And for critics, it was the performance that changed the tone. Suddenly, those who once dismissed her as just another viral face were now questioning their assumptions. Major music outlets began covering her story. Guitar brands reached out for partnerships. Musicians with decades of experience started reposting her solos with captions like, "This girl can play." And just like that, the conversation changed. No longer was she the pretty girl with a guitar. She was the guitarist. Full stop. And while her talent had always been undeniable to those who listened closely, now it had been broadcast on a stage big enough for the world to notice. But as her profile grew, so did something else: curiosity. The internet began to dig deeper, and with viral fame came something. With millions of eyes watching, it was only a matter of time before the internet did what it does best: blur the lines between truth and fiction. As Lissa Lever's fame skyrocketed, so did the confusion around her identity. Her name, unique yet similar to others, became the trigger for a digital guessing game. Some mistook her for Lissa Lever, a reality TV personality from 90 Day Fiancé. Others bizarrely connected her to Larissa Pippen, the ex-wife of basketball star Scottie Pippen, simply because of loose algorithmic overlaps. And then came the truly disturbing moment. False reports of a tragic accident involving Lissa began circulating, with photos from unrelated incidents attached. Fans panicked, thinking she had been seriously hurt or worse. The speculation spiraled, reaching comment sections and even misleading headlines. But none of it was true. Lissa had never even addressed these figures or incidents publicly. In fact, she had deliberately made a choice from day one to keep her personal life offline. While other influencers shared every dinner, date, and diary entry with their followers, Lissa remained focused on one thing: the music. No vlogs. No personal rants. No attention-seeking drama. It was a calculated decision that shielded her from the chaos and allowed her artistry to remain front and center. But that didn't stop the questions. Who was she dating? What did she believe in? Was she hiding something? The more she kept private, the more fans and gossip blogs tried to fill in the blanks. Yet, through it all, Lissa never broke her silence, not out of arrogance, but out of discipline. She understood something many young creators miss: that privacy is power. And as wild theories and clickbait headlines tried to drag her into the digital circus, she calmly continued to play, letting her guitar drown out the noise. While the outside world speculated behind the scenes, Lissa was evolving, growing not just as a performer, but as a full-fledged musician. Because the next phase of her journey wasn't about going viral. It was about building something deeper, something lasting. While the internet speculated about her personal life, Lissa Lever was quietly focused on something far more meaningful: her growth as an artist. Viral fame had opened doors, but she knew that if she wanted to be more than a digital trend, she had to evolve beyond the screen. That meant stepping out of the comfort of her bedroom and into the unpredictability of real-world music. For the first time since she picked up a guitar, Lissa sought formal instruction. She began taking in-person lessons, something she had never done before despite having already captivated millions. It wasn't a regression. It wasn't a regression. It was a reawakening. By putting herself in a learning environment, she exposed her weaknesses, sharpened her strengths, and rediscovered the joy of being a student again. And then came Honeybomb. Joining the band marked another major turning point. Suddenly, she wasn't just playing for the camera, she was collaborating, syncing with other musicians, navigating live stages, sound checks, unpredictable audiences. Gone were the perfectly controlled angles and endless retakes of online content. In their place stood real-time performance pressure and connection, and she thrived. The girl who once played alone now found herself part of a musical collective, experiencing the messy, electrifying rush of live music. Each rehearsal pushed her timing. Each show tested her stamina. Each mistake taught her something new. More importantly, it reminded her that music wasn't just about perfection, it was about presence. But as her stage presence grew, so did her commitment to balance. Lissa didn't chase every gig or say yes to every offer. She knew that real power came from protecting her energy, setting boundaries, and defining her own pace. In a world where burnout is the norm, she chose sustainability over spectacle. The result? A stronger, more self-aware artist, one who could perform under pressure, collaborate with peers, and still return home with her identity intact. But this chapter of growth wasn't just about what she learned. It was about where she was headed next. Because while covers had built her platform, her next move would define her legacy. The time had come for Lissa to stop reinterpreting other people's music and start creating her own.